All right, call to order the April 2025 Ordinance Review Committee meeting. We don't have anybody here for public comment, so we'll just move right on over to the minutes. You have in front of you January 20th minutes. They're abridged, but any questions or comments about the minutes? No? Okay, if everything's okay, can I get a motion to approve? John, approve. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
All right, it passes. You also have in front of you the agenda. Again, it's a pretty basic agenda, and we're going to work really as an open agenda tonight for the most part. So if anybody has anything they'd like to add to the agenda? All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Sarah made the motion, second.
Second.
Steve, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's get started here. Okay, so I mentioned in.
So whenever you want to.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I asked her if Michael Baker was here. Yeah, I wanted to meet him. He has those great pictures he posts. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but he has some really good pictures. He does of wildlife. Anyhow, in the last meeting, I mentioned the parking ordinance, and I think my exact words to that were, "It'll never die," and it goes on. We've got more issues that want to be brought up to the parking ordinance. First off, to cover the old stuff we talked about and came up with our agreement on the RVs and how we were going to say the RVs and the parking for RVs. We had a definition for RVs. We moved forward with that. Everything was good. We also agreed on that we were going to change the ordinance to say on parking, the part of the parking at intersections, that they have the said distance, which John, how far is the distance that are in the?
20 feet.
25 feet, 20 feet,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But the concern with the officers were that there's some intersections that actually have designated parking spaces that were within that parameter. So we were going to change that to say, unless otherwise indicated, the designated distance. So we came with that. The part that we were at a little bit odds of last meeting was the lady that requested the ability to be able to park her car in the apron of the driveway in the garden district with part of her car hanging into the alleyway. She was given a warning citation for that, and basically said it's the only way that she could park and still get into the house, because the way the house is, with being able to get to the front of the house, they have steps. And Cherie came up with the idea of us making an exception on this, which, for Cherie to make an exception is probably not something that you see often. So she, had compassion on that. We also talked about the fact that the officers were going by the letter of the law. At the end of the meeting, we decided that we were going to ask counsel for a little bit more direction on that and then bring it to the attorney. I did bring it up at our council meeting, or next council meeting after that, our February council meeting. And it was decided that we should make the ordinance, or they would like us to come up with an ordinance that allows for inconsistent parking, or parking inconsistent with the rules in the garden district on the alleys, listing each alley. And as long as it's still left the 12 foot of travel lane, 12 foot of clearance there, that we would do that. Now, another suggestion was by Sarah during our meeting was that we'd have the attorney come up with something. I kind of mentioned it to him, and it doesn't work that way with him. He's different. But basically, what we're going to have to do with that is just come up with something, then give it to him, and have him put his legal 1, 2, 3 on it. Because if we count on him to start it off, it'll just never happen. It'll be, legal this, legal that, legal this, legal that, and we'll never be able to get anything. So that's what the direction the council wants us to go for on the parking ordinances and what to do with it, at least up to that point. At the last meeting, it was brought up by a resident, which happens to be my wife, to Bruce Barton about parking at the town center. There are 3 vans that are being using the parking spaces as basically storage spaces. And they're not moving much. Steve actually, as looking through the video, you brought it up during our January meeting. I said that I thought it was construction workers for the new business opening up there. Turns out it wasn't. there was, maybe that kind of added on to it, because at times there were vans there for construction work, but they had that. There's one that's been parking there for a while, one that's a newer one to park there that owns a business that just dissolved his partnership in the business. And now he owns both vans and has no place to put it. And actually had it out for sale, which is in violation of our ordinance. So you had the for sale sign on it. So he did remove that, but they're parking them in the areas there by the town center. And this even took another twist last week where one of the tenants and one of the listing agent for the managing agent, I guess it is, for the town center has asked Sheree if there's something we can do about it, because it's parking. They're parking and blocking the area and taking up parking spaces, which there just really isn't much for that. The suggestion that was given to Bruce from the resident was that we change the parking on Meeting Street to a period of time or a non-overnight. No overnight parking or a certain period of time. The resistance that was met on that was with the fact of that we don't have the ability to police that we have to spend money on signs. I think it said $800 on signs to do that, because we need 4 signs on Meeting Street. I don't understand why you need 4, because you can only go in one way, on each side. So you really only need where you go in. You don't need to tell people where they can park when they're going out. So, you could have one on each side there where they come in, and you can say no parking. But then he said enforcement would be hard because we don't have any type of meter maid or anything like that. I don't think we have a problem myself with enforcing parking. We have one of the officers that is very good on enforcing parking, maybe a little too good, I don't know. But I don't see that as a problem. But Bruce was hesitant to just have council change that to overnight parking or not. So it was asked of us to come up with something to put into the ordinance to limit parking.
So is it a problem with parking on Meeting Street, or is it a problem with these 3 vans?
It's mainly a problem with these 3 vans.
So if we're just doing Meeting Street, then we're pushing the 3 vans somewhere else.
Where we're gonna push them is where they've already started being pushed, is on Creft.
Which is creating.
So that's where the next question came in of changing that side of Creft in front of the town center and Meeting Street to be parking for town center customers only. Now, do we need enforcement? Would it be a point where we had to have enforcement on it?
Why can't we just address the owner of said vans?
Because they can park there. There's no rule they can't. As long as their tags are current and it's not a commercial vehicle, there's no rule against them parking there. And to answer your question on that, we had asked one resident at one time, and he said he lives here, he can park there, there's nothing to do about it.
I'd rather have them on Meeting Street than in front of the businesses.
Yeah.
Because
Me too.
outside of the businesses on Meeting Street, when they start having activities there, they'll need those parking places as well, right?
I'm sorry.
When the new place there starts having some activity there, she's gonna want those parking places out there as well for her people.
But
right?
she's going with the parking spots in front of her.
So that's what I'm saying, so you create an issue there, but you're just gonna push them somewhere else, right? Then they're gonna start taking on the other side of the Crest.
Hopefully they'll take them to their house or stop storing the vehicle there.
You know, how they.
It is a designated parking space and the white lines are there. They should be able to park.
Yeah.
Forever. I mean, if we say no overnight parking, that has to be in the town center, all 3 sides. Both sides. Or town center. Town center 3, yeah.
What do you mean, all 3 sides?
Both sides of Crest and Meeting.
The other side of Miss Didi's.
Yeah.
We have restricted parking at Miss Didi's. We have restricted parking in front of the Mexican restaurant, so it's not like it's a new thing.
Yeah.
And I don't personally, I think if we do that, yes, it'll move somewhere else. Hopefully it'll move like most other places do, where they don't allow people to bring commercial vehicles, whatever, and they find a parking space somewhere that they can park it at. Some go to, these rental places, these storage places have parking lots for just that reason. And there's a lot of people that can't even park their car if it has a logo on it. They can't even park it in their driveway. Our HOA's kind of has that in there, but they're very lax on it. But we're not asking, you know, it's not a question that's being asked for anything, you know, that's not available or not allowable. Now, the reason why this got started with Lori asking about it was because during the fall festival, the guy had the van there, and she told him, said, you have to move your van. He says, I live here, and I can park wherever I want, which he's right, he can, except for the fact that that road was closed for the fall festival. And she, you know, and he was not gonna move his car. I said, look, you know, the road's closed for the fall festival. If you don't move it, we'll have the sheriff tow it. And then he moved it. But, and that was when it was just one of them. Now we got three of them. And the big thing that's being worried about is monkey see, monkey do. Because it's already happened one time. How many more are gonna show up? Hey, this is a good place to park your van, because I can't park it at home. And the workers come and meet you up there, and that's where they go from.
That's what someone that brought up my attention was concerned that they're just parking more and more vans out.
Right. It's just.
They saw two at one time, all of a sudden they started seeing three.
Correct. And they
And
probably
I
saw
felt
4 and 5 during the construction work, and it's like, oh,
Yeah,
what's going
and
on?
they saw on weekends and things, they just felt like it was become a problem for people to park the vehicles there.
And we do have to create a friendly atmosphere for our town center tenants. I mean, I think that's a very important thing to us, you know, the economic development of the town center. And if they're parking at the new place there, the new event center, if there's 2 vans parked in front of it, which one day I went by, and I started looking into this more as it was brought to my attention, when I realized too that it wasn't that. And they darn sure are parking those things right in front of the town, or, you know, right in front of that event center. You can't see the frontage of the place. And then there's one of them parked over right at the frontage of whatever the last unit is there now. I'm not sure if it's, I think it's just like where the entrance is goes into the place, but it blocks everything. So
my thought is we state that there's no parking between the hours of, I'm just gonna throw hours out here for discussion, 11 PM and 8 AM. And so there's no parking there between those hours. A citation can be written by sheriff's department. Granted, for the most part, they're not here at those times, again. But it can also be written by a code enforcement officer or a designee of that. So it can be written, it can be left on their window, they're getting one.
the advantage of doing the restricted time as opposed to 4-hour parking is 4-hour parking, you have to be able to document the car didn't move. I mean,
Right.
You know, they chalk a tire for a certain hour and.
They do certain things, but I'm just saying, but if, I'm looking at the time the restaurants close, time we have any festivals or anything, what happening, it's time that it's between these time, I think. And no restaurant, nothing opens before 8 o'clock in the morning. And if, I don't know what time the medical,
8 or 9, I'm sure,
yeah,
upstairs.
so, but as I'm saying, 8 in the morning is, you're restricting it out there, so anybody with the proper authority can write a citation at those times. So it can happen, it doesn't need to be happened by the sheriff's department, it's our own citation.
Then they just move them somewhere else, like,
Well, I know that, but that's a possibility, but that's anybody can put those anywhere, anywhere else. We're just getting it off of town center. Being responsible to our tenants over there, our town center.
Okay,
Now,
but, I mean, we got 3 council members here, but, and it also want to be clear, it still have to pass council.
this still has the best council, yes.
Or, you know, council hasn't, we mentioned this in the last council meeting, it was brought into, well, maybe this should go over to ordinance review as opposed to just council making it happen.
We need to come up, I understand that, so the ordinance committee is coming up with a recommendation for council needs to act. Yes, there's 3 members are here, but we're not acting as council, we're just making a reference for council.
So,
But I think restricting hours, I don't see putting up there for 4 hours, because people renting the venue, they're gonna be there for more than 4 hours. And you're causing yourself some problems there. Now, the parking lot behind the town center, there's a sign that says.
no, if you pull in there beside the Mexican restaurant, it shows private parking, but to the right.
To the right, yes.
Right, that's for the condos there.
Right.
But to the left, there's no sign.
But those vans could park there.
They could, yeah, and I'm sure they would all be happier with that for the most part, because it's not blocking it. But, they haven't asked for that to be considered, from what I saw in the email that Cherie had, I didn't put that one out. They didn't ask for that.
Ask for which piece?
The part that's behind all the buildings there's a parking lot there.
Realtor there? That's not part of the village though, is, I mean, that's part of the condos, and then.
That is, the part to the left is part of the town center. And it is owned by according to Cherie, it is owned by the now defunct Town Center HOA. There was at one time an HOA for the town center, and it no longer exists. So the maintenance has been done by the tenants I guess the management company, and then that building, that building there is owned by one group, except for the end unit where the Mexican restaurant is. That's owned by a separate individual. And then Miss Dee Dee owns her building that's back there. So together, I guess they all take care of whatever maintenance, how they work that out or what they do, I have no idea.
Miss Dee Dee has her own parking.
Miss Dee Dee has her own parking too, but it's not actually hers, it's actually the defunct.
Oh. I
The
didn't know that.
defunct town, that's what we talk about the parking on there, where the buses were parked on there.
Mhm.
It's not actually village property, it's not her property,
Someone's gotta be paying attention.
it's I don't know how that all works. I guess the taxes get billed to the owner or the business owners.
Okay.
Or the,
So, I'm sidetracking here, just, I know there's stakes out there for something going on to be built. There is room back there for additional parking. Do you think? I guess the question is, who would build, since it's defunct, who would build that additional parking to handle the cars? And when the venue has a meeting or something on it, there's gonna be all
I don't
these
know how that
cars.
venue's going, I mean, from talking with a lady, she said she can hold 200 people. Something, a ridiculous number, I was like, how is that gonna happen? And maybe it was 120 or something, but it was a lot larger than I thought. I just didn't think there was gonna be parking for that either.
We don't even have that in that room.
No. But
Okay.
I don't know, I mean, it's yet to be seen how that's all gonna work out. But, I would think if there is a new building there, I don't know what the UDO says about it, but I would imagine that the zoning administrator would require a certain X amount of parking spaces to be added, per square footage of space or something like that, because you can't just build and not have parking spaces. So I would imagine that something would have to be done with that. I guess that would be up to what it says in the UDO and what the zoning administrator says, so.
I don't know, I think we could go with restricted parking in the town center for all three sides, and both sides of Meeting Street for that fact, and I think a time, no parking between, and I'll say 11 to 8, but whatever the time period is, I mean, I think would work. Yes, it's gonna move people away, and they could go to elsewhere, but they're allowed to. We're just keeping town center.
Meeting Street is a unique street because it's close it off for events. So it's different than most other streets. Mother Teresa's could be similar, but you could have something that says a sign on both ends, restricted parking, road subject to event closure, no overnight parking. And that would clear up that street. And they park there, but they don't move the vehicles at night, they're gonna get a ticket.
Well, that's what I'm saying, the same thing, but I'm just putting a time.
You're just,
on it.
putting it, same basic thing,
Same
you're right.
basic thing, I'm
Yeah.
just putting a time on it.
And putting times on it, Creft, in front of the town center, Creft, and Meeting Street. I don't know how many signs we have to put up. I mean, to think about it, we got parking restrictions. Not every one of our parking restrictions has a sign.
Correct.
Okay, so, if we have an ordinance for it, again, they don't ticket people for the first time. They warn them, and usually that's sufficient. Usually that does the trick and it's efficient. I like the idea of having a certain time. Maybe we can even say, unpermitted overnight parking restricted, or, unpermitted parking, something like that, because there might be a situation where we have to have somebody park there, we don't want to say. Case in point, the guy that sets up all the inflatables for the fall festival. Of course, the road's already closed then, but he does go out a day early with that too. It has all that stuff, so.
Setting up the Ferris wheel out here.
Yeah, well, the Ferris wheel's out here, then he has, several other rides and all that stuff. It takes him a long time to get that all set up and taken out. He does a lot of work on it, so.
I can go with permitted, I mean, no overnight parking.
I'm just throwing a word in there, no overnight. From what time to what time do we want to set?
I don't know that you necessarily need to put a time. If we just do no overnight parking, I feel like that covers it. Because then you're not limited, again, like if that guy is parked his truck to unload or load any of that stuff on Meeting Street, even though he's got the other two sides of Craft, because we're not coming this way, we're only going that way.
Correct.
So he does have the other sides, but because then again, like, if you have somebody, that's staying till 11:30.
You do have to, you can't leave anything ambiguous.
I disagree, and I'm gonna say, you have someone goes out there at 4 o'clock in the morning and says, hey, no overnight parking, they're parking at 4 o'clock. I just parked there 15 minutes ago, that's not overnight.
Yeah.
You can't prove it, if you say a time frame.
That was the big thing that Bruce had against doing something, was we just don't have the ability to have a police officer sit there and watch it for a period of time to be able to say that.
Right, so that's why if you have a time frame inside there, and if it's at the sheriff's department, the code enforcement or designee can go there at any given time and write a time to it.
Is there a limited time that the event center can have events up until at night?
No restriction on that.
And then how early are the businesses open?
We think the earliest would be 8 o'clock, would be the medical center upstairs.
Okay,
Dr. Strange might have appointments as early as 8 o'clock.
okay. The vet's not open early?
You can
I
do
think it was
7
at
o'clock,
eight.
I mean, that's.
We can do 7, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, we can
yeah.
do 7, I
I'd
mean,
do
that's no
7.
big deal, I was just trying to,
Those ordinance overnight can be defined. We have definitions.
well,
My definition, what is overnight, and define it.
you're correct, but if you're holding somebody to a standard, you gotta give them what that standard is. You
Right.
can't have them have to go look out for it and find it. So,
Well, you could, but it's a whole lot easier to be
It's-
able to follow.
well,
Yeah.
I
there's
didn't
a
park
limit
here
to
overnight,
where
I
it
parked
is.
here at 1 AM.
if we're gonna, I'm sorry, what's that?
So I didn't park here overnight, I parked here at 1 AM.
Well, yeah, so if you're
Then you
gonna
always
do
go.
something, and you're gonna put up a sign that says no overnight parking.
So what do we think is a good time, from 10 PM to 7 AM?
I'd do 11.
11 to 7 AM? Does that seem like a good?
10 to 6, or whatever. Put something down.
I would say
No
11,
business.
just for something that could happen, I mean, most of our events end at what time, Mark?
10 o'clock.
10
Yeah.
o'clock,
10 o'clock's usually the latest.
So then that
So,
gives
that gives
cleanup
time to
time.
clean up and all that stuff and to get out, and that's why I'm saying, that's why I was going with 11.
But you don't really, I mean, during those events, the road's closed anyway, so you don't.
Well, I know, but Meeting Street's closed, not necessarily.
But they can still
Yeah.
park right outside of it.
Right, so I would say 11 to 7, and again, with your, unless otherwise permitted.
Those businesses still probably don't want anybody parked there, it's not doing business with them for an event, right?
Right,
I mean, if you park in front of the Mexican restaurant, and you come down to the event, it's creating an issue for them, somebody else wants to come, just go to the Mexican restaurant.
so, like I said, I think
10 to 6, 11 to 6. Doesn't matter. That takes care of the overnight piece.
mhm.
And make the sign simpler, just no parking at 6.
I don't think you need so many signs though. And furthermore, people don't pay attention to signs anyway, so.
You can,
I'd limit
I
the
mean,
number
you can
for
say, sign could be something, no parking, town center, from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. unless otherwise permitted.
Well, the other thing would be like, so in the ones that are in front of the business and then maybe over by Miss Dee Dee's, like that side.
Yeah. You have to put
Like,
up-
well, no, like, I mean, could you even just do something as simple as paint something in the spot? Like, no overnight parking, and then you have like the sign for on either side of Meeting Street.
Restricted parking.
That gives the more definitive hours, et cetera. And it's also in the ordinance, because again, like, that's a lot to try to put a sign towards. You're gonna have to have multiple signs to go down the road.
Well, I don't know that that's really up to us on that. I think it's up to us to make the ordinance, and it's up to Bruce to decide how he wants to put signage on it, what he wants to do on that.
Yeah.
Or what, he does want. Like I said, I mean, it would be a good idea to have it up there, and instead of just saying, an ambiguous time, have an actual time on a sign somewhere for it. But, there's all kinds of parking rules that aren't on signs everywhere. You can't park in your grass. There's no signs anywhere saying you can't park near an intersection.
Well, that is true.
It's all part of the ordinance, but it would be nice to have that, but we'll leave that up to Bruce once we get it into the ordinance.
I'm just trying to think of it on Miss Dee's side, is there any party park, that lives in those few homes right there on the opposite side?
I'm sorry, Mike. Yeah, I didn't hear your first part of you.
Trying to think of Miss Dee's place,
Uh-huh.
after hours, after she's done at the end of the day, is there cars that park across the street for the middle of the night or something? I don't know if there is or not.
It usually doesn't seem so, and I went by checking it several times because we were looking into the fact that the bus being parked there. And the way her parking is a little bit different. You notice it's kind of offset of the road, whereas like on the other side where the restaurant is and all, it's all right there in the road. Right, like the curb goes in some right there. I don't know why it does that, but it makes it look like it's there parking by itself.
I said, that's like park there in that corner.
It is possible they do at times
You
too.
know, I mean,
It is possible. They do at
So
times.
the other question would be is, do we wanna be consistent if we're saying town center parking and include the parking lot?
It's not ours to say. We can't restrict parking in that parking lot.
Why not?
It's no different than a driveway. It's not our property.
It's not the village.
It's not village
It's
property.
not village property, okay.
Surprised they don't park them over there anyway. Cause it's safe, to me, it'd be safer long term.
Well, I don't know, when you're right up in the middle of town right there, people see more of what's going on than you're behind buildings.
True.
You're blocking the whole side there.
Vandalism.
And one of them, I think, lives where it's much more convenient right there, but I could be wrong, I'm not sure where they all live. I do know that the tree was looking into where they were, and I think one of them turned out was registered like in Kings Mountain or something. Not even registered in anything near here, but that could have been the one that was the partner saying it's not anymore, I don't know. Okay, so that's what we're gonna work with on that, and I'm gonna bring what we just talked about with this to council to see what they say and see if the town, how we want to do this. I'm done with trying for us to write the entire ordinances and then take it to council and then have 100 changes and then come back and forth. I want to give them our basic ideas and then get their input and then put it together so we have something to pass, so we don't waste as much time as we did on the golf cart ordinance and even our own, the whole general ordinance. It took a lot longer to do that, because of that. So. Any other questions about that? Okay, we already went over the handicap placard. I kind of got ahead of myself on that too. Again, that's just, we'll throw something together real basic. And, Sarah, I'll work with you. I'll send what I've already come up with it. You can just find a place to put it. And hopefully we can shore up this parking thing and get this done and over with. Gosh, it keeps changing.
Do you want me to potentially add the other part in too?
Sure. Yeah, the
Town center?
no unpermitted parking between 10 PM and 6 or 7, whichever we come up with on that, either one will serve a purpose.
Okay.
Maybe even 6 might even be a little bit better, because I don't know how early people get dropped off at Miss Dee Dee's.
Small park early out there.
Yeah, it might be,
So do we wanna do 10 or 11?
11 to
11 to 6.
6.
So 11 to 6.
Either way, I think it'll be just as effective. So,
You're right, I don't know what time you can drop off on CDs, we might want to check that.
I doubt it ain't gonna be any earlier than 6 a.m.
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Look up the Steedies.
I'm gonna try.
I never look that way when I leave.
Yeah, whenever it is during that time, I try to avoid that way. It gets awful packed up there.
I want to look in one direction, that's the uptown,
They open at 7.
That's, okay.
so 6 should be fine.
6 would be fine, yes. I'm sure there'll be people out there waiting to drop their kids off, and there's people who get there early, so, okay. All right, so we'll be good with that. Animal control ordinance. Lots of traction on the, anti-tethering. Of what to do, how to handle that. Any other thoughts, any additional thoughts on that? Should we just take Monroe's and see how we can incorporate it with ours?
Do we think we need to do tethering?
I think that there's a big call for it. One of the things too, now, maybe we should just, move ahead for a second and see if it's something we want to do with that. You'll see right here an excerpt from an email, this is from Cherie to me, of some suggestions. I asked for, people's suggestions, these are the only ones I really got. We do have an issue with one particular house that has barking dog problems on St. Joseph, and they actually issued him a citation, not a warning, but a citation, a $50 citation, and it was paid. And it's still a problem. So
I think it was a problem, it ought to go up the next time,
Yeah, don't we
Yeah.
have that somewhere in one of our
you
ordinances?
know, I don't really know,
Yeah.
because this was brought up as to be part of a, wait for it, nuisance ordinance. We're back on that kick. It's become an extremely troublesome problem with a few things that have been going on. It's not just one resident, there's several of them.
Mhm.
But we all know the one major one, we won't say where it is or who it is, but we all know. And then there's several other ones that are becoming problems with overgrown grass, with, unsightly looking conditions. And again, as always, the Wesley Chapel ordinance comes up. We've all talked about this before. Our hope last time when we talked about this was that the new CCNRs were going to get passed from the HOA, which they did not, which was really sad because a lot of people, including John, did a lot of hard work on that to make that where it was feasible, but it just didn't pass, not because people didn't like it, because enough people didn't like it. If somebody doesn't return a vote, it's a no vote. And that's basically what ended up happening. I don't even remember, it wasn't even close to the amount of people that came out to vote for it, was it?
No.
Like 180 people and we needed 900 or something. I mean, it was ridiculous. I very much think, and council has agreed with me, or agreed with everybody on this, because this was a group discussion, that we do owe it to the people of Lake Park to live in, to have a little bit better conditions, especially on certain roads that are there. How much of our animal control ordinance, how much of our personal property ordinance, how much of what we already have is already covered in the nuisance ordinance is what we've got to figure out, and what we want to do. It even became an issue of one resident complaining to another council member so much that the council member called me up and asked me, could you have something ready for us to present on the April meeting? I'm like, no, because we're not even going to meet before then, so I can't. And it's going to be a lot of work to do this, but I also feel that this might be one of the most important things that we do as an ordinance review committee. I don't want to make it a police state like it is on things. And there's no sense in making a bunch of stuff in there that we can't enforce, but there are things that need to be enforced. Now, like I said, I've asked everybody in the council to look over the different ordinances. There's a few different ones out there, and to let us know what they think and thought and feel about it. This is the only response I've got. It did end, like I said, this is just an excerpt from the email. It did end with saying, I'm probably too strict on this. It was from Cherie. So I'm probably too strict on this, but this is just my perfect idea. So of course we know all of them won't work through, but feelings and thoughts and suggestions on what should or shouldn't be in a nuisance ordinance.
I thought when we looked at it before, most things were covered in other ordinances, and that's the reason we struck that, not doing it. At that time, right?
Most things were covered in other ordinances, the UDO, or the new CCNRs.
I didn't think the CCR came in.
No, because he did another review, just not that
Yeah,
long
he's done
ago.
one since then.
Yes,
After the CCR
Came up with that.
Well, there's nothing that we can do to take care of a junky front yard, of overgrown trees, of,
The overgrown trees, in fact, public health or safety, we can do something about it in our current ordinance.
it looks to, according to our attorney, the only way we can work through that is abatement, which is a heavy court process. You know, abatement, we go to court, we get a court order to go ahead and cut down the trees, do everything that we have to do. And then after that, then we bill the resident for that. And if they don't pay it, it turns into a tax. Well, it's the same as unpaid taxes, correct, ad valorem tax. So the problem with that is still it's not a guarantee of them cleaning it up. And you're just cleaning up the person's property. You don't even know if you're ever going to get paid for it. The only time you would get paid for it is if it's a lien, if the house is sold. You can't foreclose upon that. You know, if we do something with this and they don't fix it, it's a fine.
Well, if they don't pay the fine.
Then it can be recouped civilly. Like the gentleman that we were talking about that didn't pay his parking tickets, that we got a judgment against him.
So again, like the tree thing, like what John was saying, was what we addressed when it came to the bushes that also go into the sidewalk.
Into the sidewalks, yes.
So that's the only thing that I feel like we can police, per se, and if we need to redefine how we punish the homeowners that have those trees, then that's what we need to talk about. But I feel like that's where, I mean, that's the only leg we have to stand on in regards to the village for me. Like if it's in my yard and you're telling me they need to be 8 foot up, well, why? I can duck under a 6 foot branch. It's in my yard.
Now, yeah, are you pointing out that one that she put right here on the 8 foot? Yes, she did somewhere later in the email, or actually she sent me a subsequent email, and I should have put that on there. She was saying that for the sidewalks.
If your tree
And I-
overhangs the
Yes.
sidewalk.
That is not in-
Right.
you're
No, no,
correct.
Right.
Yeah, you're correct. It's not in the front
But
yard.
don't we
yes.
have, so what I'm saying is, do we just need to look at how we, like whether we're doing a citation or what the consequence of not doing that? Because we've already addressed that in one of our ordinances.
That particular one, yes, she did have that.
As
on.
far as like having it, now, I don't know if we said 8 feet, I don't know what we said. But I
I
know
think we
we,
said passable, has to be passable, it cannot obstruct.
I have no idea.
I
So,
believe that was it, because we dealt with that one with the other house, and we said it cannot obstruct the pathway.
Cannot obstruct.
Yeah, growth cannot obstruct the pathway, so it doesn't have a set number on that, but you are correct in that she did in a subsequent email say that she meant to put that for just sidewalks, not in front of the house. Now, you know, I'll say part of the landscaping bushes cannot block the windows of the house. I don't see any reason why you can't have a bush up to a certain point. You know.
if I wanna
so-
block my window, let me block my window.
That's.
I thought when I asked a long time ago, there was only certain things that a town, is what I was told, and this was not by the current mayor, there was only certain things a town could put requirements on for someone's house. That got changed a few years ago where we can't do that anymore.
There's things that can't be, what was always told to me, the reason why you have an HOA rules and you have town rules, is there certain things the town can do, certain things HOA can do. One of the things the town can't do is restrict the color you paint your house, whereas the HOA can.
Or restrict what you do for roofing.
Mhm.
Or restrict if you have gutters, no gutters, or shutters, no
Downspouts,
shutters,
shutters.
half shutters, can't restrict that. We can say, hey, grass can be no longer than,
Can we really, as a town, do that?
my understanding is you can.
I didn't think you could as a town.
Because it can become a
Carolina code.
If it was tall enough to become a health hazard, but that's 18.
North Carolina code says as long as about personal property are considered detrimental to public health, safety, or comfort put a code against it.
That's right, if it's
Public
something
health, safety, or comfort.
Right.
If it's a breeder for rats going through or snakes, you can do something about it.
But you can't say grass no higher than 2 inches, it has to be at some.
18 inches or something.
Yeah, it does have to be high. I think it's
Yeah.
12 to 18 inches.
Yeah.
Do we have somebody that's taller than that we have an issue with?
We did last week at the corner of, Mother Teresa and Mimosa. Is that right? Did you see that email too?
No, I didn't see an email, but I saw the grass.
Okay, you know what I'm talking
I saw the
about?
grass got cut. I was like, oh, someone's mowing the grass.
Yes. Yeah, there was somebody that was complaining about that. And that house apparently is a rental house that was in really, really bad condition. The people moved out. And the rental company came in and cleaned it up and everybody was happy. And then the people moved in, don't seem to be too much better on it. But they did cut it. They did cut it and they were contacted. Now, you know, how that goes, where that went, I don't know.
We cannot say weeds can't be more than 50% of someone's yard. You can't tell them they have to have grass, you can't.
Right.
We can't do that.
That's right.
We can't say you cannot have no weeds are not permitted in your driveway, cracks or anything. That's HOA, the town can't do that.
Right, but don't we already do that? Cause I'm pretty certain I got a
The
citation.
HOA does.
HOA does,
HOA
yes.
Oh, so they want us to add it also in here?
Well, the HOA can't enforce it apparently.
So why
That's
do
why we're in the
why do I get a
situation we're in.
notice when I have them in my driveway?
Because they count on people saying, hey, you know what, that needs to be taken care of and I'll take care of it. But according to the HOA and what is being told from past presidents and the current, well, I haven't heard from the actual current president now, so it's new. But from the last one, the one before it, and the one before that, they all said, we cannot enforce our CCNRs because they're too ambiguous. They do not define what needs to be said, and if somebody fights us on it, we cannot win in court. Okay. Most people are common and decent people. When they see something like that, and they get a letter and they get it, oh yeah, I've been overlooking this. I will fix this. It's, you know, I didn't notice that. I came blind to it. Some people are wagging their tail at the HOA saying, you can't get me, na boo boo. I'm gonna make it even worse. And have made it their mission to destroy everybody's life that lives on their street. And that's become a huge problem. And it's affecting every house over that way. You know, I wouldn't want to live next to it, across from it, or anywhere where I could see it. And I certainly wouldn't want to have my house for sale with it there. Okay, I mean, this is what we're dealing with.
The only way I think that we could, as a town, is if we had a health ordinance. And then you gotta, again, you're dealing with enforcing.
You can go under the general statute, North Carolina general statute for their health. You can go underneath all that. It's actually part of the general statute that says we have the authority to add any particular health hazard that is listed in the general statute. I can't remember what the actual one is. It's referenced a lot in our ordinance. Basically just says that we're allowed to make ordinances pursuant to general statute. You know, you've seen that on there. And if there's anything in the general statute that we want to refer to on it, we can. Now, there's two ways that a town can take care of it. One is having an ordinance to prohibit it from happening and fine the person. The other is going through a nuisance abatement. Nuisance abatement is a court order, so you have to get an attorney. You gotta get your attorney to go to court to get a court order for us to have the right to send people to the house, to cut down that tree, to clean up that yard, to get rid of that pile of mulch that's sitting there, to remove junk cars, to do whatever, and then charge them for that. We can do that, but that's an extremely expensive process that doesn't guarantee you much of anything.
Mhm.
So that's why towns can and do have the authority to have nuisance ordinances. I personally think Wesley Chapel's goes way too far. Okay.
I tried to read some of theirs today, and
I think there's a happy medium.
the first part of most of it was about the cars, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a big thing about junk cars and things.
So do we have an issue with that?
Same person.
Cause
So,
they have,
is it a one-person issue? I mean, we keep saying same person, so.
It's not a 100% one person, but it's a majority of a one person thing.
but when you say a junk car, what does that mean?
Unregistered, in disrepair,
But that's not allowed.
non-functional.
We don't
On the
allow,
street. On the street, we don't have anything that says anything about it being on your property.
I'm pretty certain, I thought we did, because my neighbor had to have a license plate on his truck, in his driveway.
I wanna
That's
say,
HOA.
I wanna say that we do have,
We do,
yeah,
I'm fairly certain
pretty
because
sure we do have something.
You got a flat tire, it's not drivable.
like it
Pretty sure
has,
everything
it
we
has
have on that's
to
in
be
the parking
registered.
ordinance.
All I know is that it for darn sure has to be registered and has a license plate on it.
It says it has to have a license plate. I remember that it doesn't say it needs to have a current license plate. I think it just says license plate. I think, I could be wrong there.
How do you get a license plate if it's a broken down car? You can't take it and get it inspected.
It's an
You
old,
go get a 10-day permit.
How many 10-day permits can you get?
I've seen them issue several of them. But you gotta go to, you gotta go to the plate office, you gotta wait in line, you gotta,
but
that's what the
again,
whole rule on that one is, if you have to drive somewhere, to show insurance, to give you a 10-day permit.
in regards to what Jim was saying, and like with the health ordinance type thing. Because again, like, I think we already addressed a lot of things. And maybe we need to just, again, make sure we look at the general statute. But like, you know, in regards to the mold, like, that's a health problem. Like, we don't need to have mold around because that can cause other issues. So that's a hazard. So in regards to that type of a hazard, where, like, does it give you specifics in the general statute that says, okay, so these are the types of, this is what a hazard is, kind of thing, to where, again, if we just reference, like, because I swear we've got other things too in regards to the yard, like the pool, like being a health hazard, like you can't have standing water in it, et cetera, like that kind of stuff, like that's another hazard. So we've got things in our ordinances that talks about hazards. And I don't know if, like, if mold is one of those things, if, you know,
According to a separate attorney, not our actual attorney, one that the village hired for another situation, we don't have anything that stops anything for pools. We would, if we had a pool problem, we would have to hit them under the nuisance abatement too.
okay.
I mean, that's according to,
Well, the UDO covers the building of the pool, do they not?
the covered building of it, yes.
We won't have anything about anybody, a defunct pool people are not using.
So how do we fix the voting requirements then?
For the HOA, you can't. You can only, the only way that the voting requirements can be changed on the HOA is if that amount of people vote for it to change, and you'll never get it. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, they've tried it 2 or 3 times, I know they've worked on that thing 2 or 3 different times, trying to get it passed, and it never passes.
And again, I know we can't do every single thing that an HOA can do, but we need to do what we can do. And all I'm asking for right now is for people to look into what we want. Like I said, I only got one response from people from council on what we want, and it was from Sheree.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted it, everybody was, oh yeah, we gotta do something, it's time for us to do something, we've gotta do this. It was brought up to me in several different emails, but I got no guidance on it whatsoever.
I thought we, again, like we looked at it after, and
Yeah,
we said we weren't gonna do it, and then now we're saying we're gonna do it again.
do you still have
So-
all your notes?
I thought some of the notes
Do you
were
still have all
around,
your notes from when you looked at
they
them?
were in other ordinances already.
Your notes from when you looked at like the nuisance thing compared to our
Not Ouija,
ordinances?
John, do you have those?
But do you have them at home?
I probably did it on my home computer.
Okay, that's fine.
You wanna look them up and see what you saw that we don't have covered and what we
Or
do have covered?
Just
Would you
resend
be
it
able to
or
do that for
whatever.
us, John?
Yeah, I can find it, send it out.
Cause I think that's that's again what we need to look at, like, and this is gonna be in sidewalks or whatever, I forget what that one's called, but
I see number D on here, 4D, right? Is that talking about on people's property, or is that talking about parked out front, or is that talking about on the streets?
What,
Oh, that's on the street and.
Right, well, you know what I'm saying, though, I mean, to me, it shouldn't just be that, it should be any vehicle that's being used for storage, should be an issue.
well, I don't know,
That's you
define storage, define that. If you're,
According to this, would be a collection of debris or junk in the bed.
Yeah, but even,
Yeah.
even you don't have it in the bail, so you have it in the back of the back seat.
But if I have a pickup truck and I'm putting stuff together and I'm throwing in the back of my truck because I'm gonna take it to the dump on Saturday,
That's different, though.
okay? But that's violation here.
That wouldn't be storage.
I'm storing it in there until I get rid of it,
It's
and
there
it'll
for
be all
you.
week, I start on
Yeah,
Sunday.
you have to put some time parameter around it, right?
Yeah, but how do you?
But I can see somebody putting a car out there on the street, my car stopped running, maybe I'll just put trash in it or something for a while.
People use their cars. They'll have 3, 4 cars in their driveway. And you get a car or truck, they'll load them up with stuff inside. They're loaded with
That's what I'm saying.
trash.
Yeah.
To them, it's their prized possessions. So how do you define that?
It's difficult.
They have no
Let's think about
storage
this.
in their garage. We don't have basements.
Sarah,
mhm,
when we're talking about, section 6, it talks about the policy purpose finding, it talks about street or alley within the corporate limits of the village. It does not talk about a person's driveway
for what?
for parking unregistered vehicle. It's only on the streets or within town limits, but not on the person's property. The way it's written, it does not include it.
Well, then maybe we just add that in there.
Well, that would be, I mean, that is definitely a place to put in.
Would you say that again, within town limits?
Yeah, it shall be unlawful for the driver of any vehicle to stop such a vehicle in or upon any street or alley within the corporate limits of the village of Lake Park, except for the purpose of parking as provided in this ordinance, unless such stop is made necessary by the approach of fire apparatus, blah, 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 blah. It does not talk anything about, and it goes through the definitions, it goes through different things, but that's the purpose, policy, the findings are there, and everything that we do is based upon that. And it's talking about the streets or alleys within the village of Lake Park, not on public property, not on personal property.
And again, I think we have to really make sure clear what we can do on personal property or not do on personal property.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, again, unless it's a hazard.
Right, unless it's a hazard. I think you always have that hazard issue, but
Okay, so since automobile seems to be our first thing that we're finding the most with and we're talking about, why don't we all look into, one, like I said, the benchmark that's been used is Wesley Chapel's. Why don't we look at just the automobile section of Wesley Chapel and see what parts of that we would like to incorporate into our ordinance, whether it be under personal property or under parking. I think a lot of it will have to go under personal property. If it's something.
Did you look at that one too?
I can,
I don't think there's, and I could be wrong, but I don't think there's anything referring to automobiles on personal property, except for the fact of where you can't leave personal property, such as an automobile on public property.
you do. I have my phone.
That's the majority of what the personal property ordinance says, is you can't leave personal property on public property.
I mean, we say about defining, regulating, abating acts, emissions, conditions which are detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of its citizens, the peace and dignity of the village of Lake Park. No abandoned vehicles, no abandon any person, not to abandon any personal property, a portion thereof. But it's again, that's defined by sidewalk, crosswalk, park, designated common area. In the space between the sidewalk and a public street, and in the island, it's all lake park. It's all corporate property, personal property.
So, but it does state about like that it's a hazard.
Like I'm looking at abandoned vehicles in Wesley Chapels,
Mhm.
and it says, as authorized and defined by GS 168-303, one that is left upon a public street or highway, is left upon a public street or highway longer than 7 days, is left upon property owned or operated by the village no longer than 24 hours, or is left upon private property without the consent of the owner, occupant, or leasee. So that's anything about private property of someone that owns the house.
Somewhere in their ordinance, it states that you cannot have more than one unoperable vehicle unless it is in a garage.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there it
that's-
says that. I
I
can't
did
remember
see
where, but there
that.
is somewhere it says that.
And then,
It says junk motor vehicle unauthorized and defined by the code section. Vehicle that does not display a current license plate lawfully upon the vehicle. Partially dismantled or wrecked, cannot be self-propelled or moved in the manner in which it originally was intended to move, or is more than 5 years old and appears to be worth less than $500.
I don't know, there's cars that are worth less than $500
They're worth
anymore,
that much as junk nowadays.
right?
You know, our parking ordinance says, the parking of any campers or trailers in the rear yard of any single family dwelling. We're encroaching onto personal,
The personal property.
yeah.
Their nuisance vehicle says the vehicle on public or private property that is determined and declared to be a health or safety hazard. Public nuisance unlawful, including a vehicle found to be a breeding ground or harbor for mosquitoes or other insects, rats, and pests.
Yeah.
A point of heavy growth of weeds or other vegetation.
Would that just be as simple as a broken window? The broken window can hold water, it can have, you know,
Good.
Could.
I
And
mean,
condition allow the collection of pools or ponds of water. Concentration of gas. Abandoned lawful possession, lawful possession.
I know one house that's got room for 4 vehicles. 3, 4 in his driveway. He had 5, he got rid of 1. One of them is a truck. And that truck bed is full of stuff. And it
I
looks
mean,
unsightly.
there's their.
What are you gonna do?
yeah, this is what Mike was just.
Right.
Steve was just looking at.
Yeah, I gotta look at it a little more. You said there's something here about you have more. Oh, one junk motor vehicle in its entirety may be located in the rear yard.
So it says in the prohibited at all times in certain locations, and it says at all times and at all locations. When the vehicle has any of the following conditions, 1 or more flat tires, is covered by a tarp, casing, sheet, or other covering that does not allow for proper identification of the vehicle, registration plate, vehicle make, or vehicle model, or has affixed to the vehicle any registration plate that is expired, altered, disguised, illegible, or concealed in any manner in violation of chapter 20. So it doesn't,
Is that in there?
I was gonna say, are you reading ours or the, yeah, I thought that was ours.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So it does say, I think item E, if you got the whole thing printed out. E1.
One junk motor vehicle entirety.
Yeah,
Concealed from public view, from a public street or abutting
or about,
premise.
yeah, I actually
mean-
like that, I mean, define, but. What are we gonna do and enforce it? If we do something like this, what are we going to do and enforce this? Just a civil penalty, daily civil penalty to correct it?
Well, it has to be civil penalty.
Yeah, and you give them notice and you give them a week or 2 weeks to correct the problem, and then the civil penalty starts from day 1 if they don't correct it.
I would think so.
Should be towed only after notice to the registered person, owner or person entitled to list the vehicle in the case of nuisance vehicle, a junk motor vehicle.
Now, they have the pre-towing notice requirements too, so.
They did.
Which, yeah, I mean, it's,
But then when you tow it, then it has to be stored, because they have to be able to retrieve it.
well, that's, yeah, but that's all, that, you don't have to, you call a towing yard for that. And they store it, and they're more than happy to store it for as long as you want, for $35 a day. Yeah.
As long as we're paying 30.
No, the owner.
No, we're not paying it.
The owner of the vehicle pays the storage to retrieve the vehicle. If they do not retrieve the vehicle in 10 days, there's a form, an abandoned vehicle form that they fill out. And if they don't, then they can only charge 10 days of storage, but they'll be right on that.
Mhm.
And then they can charge from that point forward, and then they can, very easily put a lien on the vehicle for amount due.
They actually have where I read that, just one word, right to prohibit calls, hearing before sale or final disposition of vehicle.
Yeah, of course they'll have.
Yeah.
But now, if it's towed away and it goes through to storage, then it goes all under the, chapter 20 rules. And they can just sit there, it's much simpler on a car to satisfy a lien, to sell a vehicle to satisfy a lien than it is on a house.
Mhm.
The courts don't really get in the way on that. There's a court hearing you have on that, but that's, again, that's not us, that's the towing yard. And that's up to them.
Let's see what the violation penalty was. I think all was too small.
Okay. And that's the whole,
That's the whole thing.
that's the whole thing.
You did better than me, I didn't get it printed out yet, I had my
Yeah.
computer up till I came over here.
So, like I said, the whole thing's
I
not
started
needed.
highlighting, and it's like, okay, we're gonna hit things where we promised, oh, there's too much, I'm just gonna print it.
John, I think you look back at your notes of what you did.
I get it out there, sir.
Yeah, if you could do that, and then, like I said, let's just focus on the automobile set part of it, to see what we can do about that. See if there's a way that we can amend our existing, ordinances to add it in as opposed to making an entire general nuisance ordinance. Does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
So Union County does not have a tethering, but Monroe does.
Monroe, yeah, Union County's animal control ordinance has absolutely nothing to do with,
That hasn't changed.
right,
So
it's all the same there. That's why Monroe came up with theirs, because they had no way to police tethering. I mean, the only thing that Union County can do on theirs is, under animal abuse.
Mhm.
And it's very vague, and it's very, and again, it's one of those things like, the dog has to be left outside for a certain period of time, so you have to have the deputy watching and timing it. You can't leave it outside unattended. I mean, if you're not in the dwelling,
Mhm.
so like you can't go to work and leave your dog outside, tethered up. But again, how does the deputy know somebody's home or not? Now, of course, somebody knocks on, somebody's barking, dog's barking, somebody calls and complains of being a nuisance, the deputy goes by the house, nobody answers the door. It can be presumed nobody's there, but who answers the door anymore?
True.
Now, of course, most people, it's because they look at their ring, and if they see a deputy there, you would imagine that most people would answer the door. But the tethering,
The other thing on tethering, I don't want to create an issue where we have more tethering than we do now, right?
So we do have multiple
think?
offenses for animals.
I thought so. What does it
It's
say?
25 for the first, 50 for the second, third and ongoing is $100.
Does it have a time reference for those?
Each day, regardless of the date of the notice, shall be considered a separate offense.
Okay, but I mean, if we have okay, so it's based on the same offense daily, okay, all right, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, the
I
150.
didn't know if it was, he
I mean,
had
that's gonna be
something.
my next question on it. I'll just be honest, I didn't have a chance to look at that
Mhm.
to see, anything on there. I thought that you were correct on that, Sarah, but I didn't know off the top of my head. And that was brought into the email, was that they did that now. I mean, my question will be back, well, why haven't we issued another
Citation.
citation on it? I mean, just keep doing it until it gets through. I hate to keep on costing people money, but I also hate it for the neighbors around there that apparently are, I mean, to be honest with you, the 6+ years that I've been doing this, and correct Jim, if you know anything differently, because you had a little bit before, do you ever remember anybody getting an animal nuisance citation?
No, and I'll say prior deputies, they heard something, they would go down, by the time they
By the
get
time they got there, it
there,
was
it's
taken care
there,
of.
nothing going on, they can't do anything,
Right. So this must be really bad
yes.
if it got to that point, and it still is an issue. I mean, yeah, I'm sorry for the people. I love dogs, and yeah, but they got to do something about it. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I've gone out, been walking around, and gone to people's house that have a bigger dog, say it that way, and said, hey, you have a hole in your fence, your dog can get through. And, you know, when it's out there walking in their area, dog would wants to rip you up. I mean, it could be that it's just protecting its property. Don't know the answer to the question there, but, you know, if the dog gets out because they have a hole in their fence, and I've seen someone fix it with duct tape.
That didn't work. Weird.
I know it's 100-mile-an-hour tape. but-
Man, that probably would have saved me a lot more money. Where were you like 4 months ago?
You could even got some brown duct tape too.
Right? I know, could have made it look real nice.
Okay, and then I know someone who's got a gate in their fence and they put chicken wire up. Chicken wire's not allowed.
I'm pretty sure that's not allowed too.
But,
Only if you duct tape it on.
you know, you can duct tape it up, right?
Well, you know, my next door neighbor has a rather large dog and they got a fence that, is about, the dog's just about as tall. You can tell the dog could leap it. And they also have the invisible fence.
Mhm.
But it scares some people because he starts barking and they look at it as like, that dog, that fence. But he won't go past it. I mean, he will not, he's trained very well. He's the Goosebuster guy. He trains dogs, so.
Right.
You know, it's trained very well. It barks and it goes towards them, but it stops. But if you see it coming, you're not thinking it's going to, you're not thinking that fence is going to stop it, but it does.
Yeah.
So.
But, and barking is one of the things that we have already.
What do we think on tethering?
I'm gonna say this, in my walks around, I've never seen any dog tethered. And there could be, I just not seen it.
Serious.
There's one that's very close to you, right?
Yep, it's right behind my neighbors,
And it's a nuisance too.
Hey, are they tethered all day or?
24/7.
See, that's the problem. That's why I wouldn't want
That,
more
well,
people to think, now I can tell about dog 24/7.
like, this is my
To me, it's
thing
not fair
is,
to the dog.
they have a fenced yard, and it does have a little dog house there now, but like, so why can't you just let it run?
Yeah.
Like, in the yard. If you want it to live outside, different story. And it does bark a lot. I can't hear it from me, but my neighbor that lives right behind it hears it all the time. And they've gone out there, but I don't think anything.
I know the deputies have gone out there a couple of times, but they said that they just could never get it, like we were saying, at the right time. Or they know that it's being left there at times when there's nobody else around, but they just can't do anything. They can't police it. I mean, you can't spend all the time on a barking dog. You know, if you're sitting there watching it for the 30 minutes and you get another call,
You gotta go.
you gotta go. So.
That's the other part that stinks, is that they have to see it.
But if we
Because again, like, I can sit there and I can call it, and it's gonna be 30 minutes, maybe an hour before somebody comes out. Well, so much for that. And it's like, okay, well, they can sit there for a little bit, but again, it's hard, because it's, again,
So would somebody like to take the tethering ordinance and see what parts of it are already incorporated into our ordinance and what might need to be added to it? Somebody want to take that project on? I flip coins.
I can look at it.
Well, you're doing the parking. Okay, you're doing the parking ordinance.
It doesn't matter. We charge custody. Yeah. We don't have. It just says like in bad conditions and their yard's not in bad condition per se, but I don't. Like, that's the other hard part too, is like. Without. Really going over there and looking at it, you just don't know, like, I can almost guarantee that it's not getting like fresh water every day and. I mean, it's out there in the heat. I mean, yes, it's under trees and stuff like that, but
If, subject to the weather and conditions,
Yep.
and that's, yeah. Not my ideal life for an animal.
no, and again, like it can't even go under, I don't know, they have a deck in the back, so I'm like, I don't know if it can even go under there, that, I mean, at least it's a little different shelter for it than this tiny little plastic dog house. But.
I
Yeah,
mean, I printed that ordinance too, from well, and. I didn't, we have some of the stuff in our ordinance already,
mhm.
but.
We don't have anything specific to actually tethering them.
No, nothing for tethering them to, we don't have, I don't believe we have maintaining dogs in an environment of unsanitary conditions or lack of cleanliness, which results in offensive odor, dangerous to public health, welfare, blah, 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 maintaining a condition of good order, cleanliness, which reduces the probability of disease. I mean, there's little things that.
We do have something like that,
We do?
yes.
I don't remember that.
Why don't we do this? Why don't Jim and Sarah work on the tethering animal control ordinance? And see what you guys can come up with on the difference of that. We have that. Steve and I will work on what we can do with the nuisance automobiles and how we can incorporate it into any of our ordinances. John, you take the remainder of the ordinances from, or the violations in the nuisance ordinance from Wesley Chapel and look and see what we have covered and continue your work on that and see if we can get that.
Focus on all those vehicles.
Yep. Sound like a plan?
Mhm.
Sounds like a plan.
Any other comments?
No, we're gonna meet next month?
Since we have a lot of work in front of us, we're gonna tentatively set for May 19th. Anybody have any problems with that date?
Is that the right one?
That is
I was thinking the same thing.
that is the one, thank
I
you.
like it.
I think I corrected Sheree like 3 or 4 times on the date. Oh, no, it's supposed to be the 14th, the next thing you know, I said, oh, it's the 21st. I knew I was switching it from one to the other, but this is the actual,
This is what it should have been.
right, this is where it should have been.
It's on my calendar for the 14th.
Yeah, because I said that at the meeting, I said the 14th, and.
She was just getting confused because it's usually the night before the planning and zoning meeting. But the way the week fell this week, no.
The month started on the Wednesday, so
Yeah,
yes,
so it was like, no, it's
it threw everything off.
all a week.
Yeah, so everything is a week behind. I've had a million things going on personally, not an excuse, but haven't quite had everything straight. All right, well, we're all set. If, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's go.